We'll see how it goes. So far, the volume's fine, and that's kind of it. Is like in a state of progressive overload, you're wanting to be able to break your tissue down or your muscles down to the point that when they heal, they're healing back stronger than they were before the training day. And so you keep doing that, and you should be on a upward trajectory as an athlete. But like where overtraining comes in is obviously if you're breaking your muscles down and they can't recover in a positive and meaningful way, and they're just broken down and broken down and broken down and broken down, then you're overtraining, and that's not productive. So,
Have you hit that point before?
yeah, certainly when I burnt out in like 2022, I was there.
Peaking for 2 years, you're gonna.
Just peaking for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so definitely with with my program, I try to pay pretty close attention to making sure that people aren't burning out. And so I think the regular deload's a smart thing in kind of an overreaching training style. That pretty much sums that up.
With Silverback, could you see yourself, or are you wanting to eventually have that be full time?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a definitive yes.
Or
I like that.
Or yes, or enough to supplement my income enough to be able to step away from my career and create another venture out of that. And that wouldn't necessarily even mean training either. Silverback's actually like been a pretty neat little journey this year, especially. It's weird. You probably get this too, just with entrepreneurial endeavors where like you feel like it's going nowhere and then boom, you get something. And so I had a client who was training on my programming, and she was that like 10-year hard gainer, and she was starting to gain, and like all of her PRs are going up. And then like she's I don't want to say a heavier athlete, but in the world of CrossFit, you typically will have a gymnastic specialist that would be like a lighter athlete that can do a ton of muscle ups in a row. And then you would have like a weightlifting specialist that's really strong. They're probably not a great gymnast, but they're a really good weightlifter. And then you'll have a monostructural athlete that's really good at running and really good at like engine work and output. And so everybody's a combination of the three, the G, the W, and the M. And sometimes you'll get athletes that kind of lean in the middle of a spectrum. You know, they might be gymnasts, and monostructural athletes are often like overlapped really well. Like you get a lot of like excellent runners and excellent like just go for, you know, a 5K run in 20 minutes who can also bang out like a lot of pull-ups. Like their body weight is mutually exclusive to be able to enable that. So she's a W and an M. So she's training for a half Ironman. So she's got massive monostructural capacity, and she's also a weightlifter, but for some reason the gymnastics just aren't coming together. And so then she started getting like big gymnastics gains, and because I'm a larger athlete myself in this world, and so gymnastics are a bit of a struggle for me, but I can still bang out 20 muscle ups in a row, which is like pretty good in the sport and in the level. So I have like a lot of protocols in the program to be able to help elevate the W biased athlete. So she's in the gym. Sorry, I'm making the story long. And people are like, hey, like, what are you doing? You're not doing our programming. Like, what is it? And she's like, oh, it's this guy out of Kamloops. He's got this program. It's like a Canadian thing for training CrossFit athletes. And so basically that bug got put in their ear, and so the gym owner eventually, I got connected with her through this athlete, and so I'm doing some programming for their gym.
Oh, cool.
And so now it's looking like we're going to adapt Silverback into an affiliate style program where like if you own a gym, I'll give you the programming for your gym, because a lot of the gyms will outsource their programming because these gym owners will be wearing a lot of hats. You know, they're the guys that got to go and fix the toilet. They got to keep the place clean. They got to make sure the weights are there. They got to make sure the program's designed. They got to go and coach it themselves. They got to
lead a
take care of,
class,
you know, like so many hats to wear as a business owner.
Programming takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
Programming takes a lot of time, and I feel like you got to have a passion for it. Like you can tell if you're doing a burnt out person's program, and you can tell if you're doing a program where somebody's just like on fire for programming. And that's kind of secretly my first love, not so secret anymore. And then second would be like watching the results that people get from it. But I just like to make programming that gives me FOMO, that I'm like, this is going to be so cool. And then people will do it and they'll be like, oh man, that was really tough. Like, thanks for that. So that was resonating well with that gym. We're kind of in the process of flipping things from the program that they were using into this. So it's been really cool, really educational for me too, because I haven't really had too much like inside of a business experience. So to be able to collaborate with their ownership and just make sure that things are running well for them is cool. And then my pitch too is just like, you can buy programming from anybody, but talk to your programmer and be like, hey, this is my gym's dimensions, this is the equipment that we have. And so I can at least like tailor that to their gym and be like, all right, well, this is X, Y, and Z for you in this situation, but it's all based off of Silverback, which is what I was doing for myself for the last 2 years and what I plan to go back to after I'm done with the coaching stuff. And so they own 3 competitions. They own the Okanagan Valley Throwdown. They own the Fraser Valley Throwdown, which is in Vancouver, and it's currently the largest competition for CrossFit in Western Canada.
How do you own a competition? What does that mean?
Yeah, they own like the rig and all the equipment, and they have like a trailer, and it's just like a traveling circus where they'll like haul it out there and set it up and like boom, venue.
Okay.
So they have this, I think it's September 27th at the Richmond Oval and the 28th, end of September, last week of September. Maybe it's the 26th, 27th. So they just chatting with them, they reached out and they're like, hey, do you want to program the Fraser Valley Throwdown? And I'm like,
what an opportunity, man.
Okay. they like
twist my rubber arm.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like, okay, programming, that sounds sweet. That's what I love to do. And like competing as an athlete for like 13 years and maybe being critical of some programming that I've been on the receiving end of too. I thought it was a cool place for me to put my money where my mouth is. But then they kind of like peel back the Wizard of Oz curtain and you're like, oh my God, there's so many moving parts behind programming. So I write the programming, but then like I also have to make sure that like the scorecards are going to be good for the volunteers that are using it to judge their athletes with, and cohesive and flow well as like the equipment loading team has to be instructed on like what each lane for each athlete needs to be loaded properly with. And then there's like 12 different divisions. You know, you got like the competitive division, but then you got an intermediate and a beginner division, and then they got age group divisions for masters athletes and teenage athletes, and then they have team divisions of competitive intermediate. And so it's like, that's a lot of programming to do.
Wow.
And like sometimes, you know, you'll like nail a competitive programmer's workout and or like tests that they have to do in the competition. There's usually 5 to 6 that they have to do. So yeah, I got 6 for this one. And then you'll look at like a lower division and you'll be like, oh crap. And so I'm like trying to program for the teenagers. And then thankfully they had a contact. They're like, hey, this is like the local expert. Rise Fitness Collective has like a huge teenage program in the Lower Mainland. They're like, reach out to their owner. But it's still, I'm like cold emailing their owner being like, hey, heard you guys know about can you take a look at this? And like, thankfully they were actually super awesome to deal with. Just like, oh, wow, thank you so much. Thanks for including us and being able to have some input here. This is what the teenagers would be good for. And yeah, so.
How does programming for your day-to-day sort of athletes with your progressive overload and, you know, working on some of their weaknesses differ from programming for an event like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of an event, I'll start with the event because that's the easier one.
Yeah.
The event, you are essentially wanting to assess who's the fittest there. And so in order to get a picture of like who the fittest is, we got to test their strength properly. We got to test their gymnastics capacity properly. And then we got to test their monostructural capacity. So making sure G, W, and M are respected is massive. And then I personally traditionally, there's been a couple of different perspectives to look at. There's like this one competitive organization called IF3, the International Functional Fitness Federation. And they're kind of, I don't know, I didn't really like their programming because they would be like, here's the weightlift program. And it would just be like a 1 rep max. And then they'd be like, here's the gymnastics program. And it would just be like a bunch of gymnastics. And then here's the run. And then we'll do like 1 CrossFit where we blend the 3, or 2 CrossFits where we blend the 3, and that's it. And one's a long window and one's a short window. So they make sure that they hit all their stuff totally precisely, but it's boring because you're just like.
Yeah, I was going to say, like all the CrossFit things that I've watched in the documentaries, so there's an event, and then is there like, what is this, a workout? Is that what it would be called?
Workout, a test, and event. Yeah, for sure.
So like whatever the test or the workout is, it's a blend of different movements. It's dumbbell snatches or kettlebell snatches, and then with lunges overhead, and then there's a sandbag or something, and that's what really is exciting for me to watch. Like, that guy's got a 150 pound sandbag and he's doing lunges, and now he's doing muscle ups on rings, and like, that's what I want to see.
So cool too when you see like an athlete with say a deep weightlifting capacity, having to finish 30 ring muscle ups for time or something like that, and the gymnast took like an extra 40 seconds to work through the weightlifting stuff because that wasn't, their wheelhouse, and then they catch the athlete in the lead on the muscle ups. It's so cool to watch like the different capacities and specialties work through a blended test of all the stuff. So I've biased one workout to have like weightlifting as the component, but I don't really want to have like a 1 rep max. I would rather have like, 10 clean and jerks at 225 and then do something else. And so like the strong athlete can get through that barbell faster than the weaker athlete, but that something else might bite the strong athlete in the butt, especially if they don't have the lungs to carry it, or vice versa. We got like, I got an event that has it has 30 sandbag cleans with 150 pounds, but it also has 250 feet of handstand walking. So it's like,
I was about to bring up the handstand walking.
who's going to win here, the gymnast or the athlete that can move a 150 pound sandbag around 30 times? It's like, that's a tough call because that's 250 feet. That's a long distance to handstand walk.
For each of those different, was it W, M, and
G?
Yeah. For each of those, would you say that each of them has their own most difficult movement?
Yep, for sure. So I think you could like, and we're getting a little away from like how I would program Silverback, but I like.
So I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say at like the foundation of a strength movement would maybe be a deadlift, like in the bar from the floor to your waist, and then the pinnacle of the strength movement would probably be the squat snatch. Get the bar from the floor to the overhead position, caught in an overhead squat, and then stand it up. And so the difference there in the two both have a hinge from the floor, but one has a tremendous amount of technique and flexibility that's required. Similarly with gymnastics, you might say like maybe the most basic gymnastic movement would be like a burpee.
Okay, yeah.
And the most complex gymnastic movement would be like handstand walking or a ring muscle up, or make it strict, or a strict legless rope climb.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so there's definitely a sliding scale too. And so obviously if you're an intermediate athlete, you're probably not handstand walking 250 feet or doing a legless rope climb, but certainly for competitive athletes. And certainly there's a crowd there and they want to see competitive athletes get lit up. And I definitely want to light a competitive athlete up. Both as like a guy getting FOMO because I can't do my own programming in a competitive setting because that's unfair, but also just like seeing how the Vancouver athlete base will respond to that kind of testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for explaining that. I had that question in the back of my mind, and sometimes when I'm doing this, I try and like hold on to the question, and then we get down this other rabbit hole, and then maybe I forget about it. But like I want to know right now. I'm gonna
tangents on
butt
tangents.
in here. So keep going about the programming part there.
Yeah. Well, I'll just finish it too with like programming for a competition. I just want it to be undeniable that like whoever's on top of the podium was the fittest person in that room at that time in that division.
So you make sure it's each of the different modalities. Otherwise, if it was just really heavy on the strength,
then a strength athlete wins it.
Yep.
And so there's no weight classes in CrossFit. There's no differentiation between athletes aside from gender and skill level. And so if they're going in a certain skill level, i.e. competitive, and they are a certain gender, there's only two, sorry, then like that's what they're going to get as the programming. So the winner of that needs to be, so if you have just a ton of weightlifting and then make them do like 30 burpees or whatever, and you had 100 reps of weightlifting, that would be way too biased to the W. And so as an athlete, as a spectator, as anybody who's participating in there, you'd be like, that event wasn't balanced properly. So making sure that the balance is there for all three of those modalities is like, that's the most important part. And then also having some skill and some coordination. Like I want like a strong athlete or maybe a really good gymnast to mess up because there's an athleticism component there, or like they're getting pushed by a competitor that's making their lungs burn too hot, and then they make a silly mistake because they're too tired. Like I want mistakes to occur too. I want like athletic IQ to be able to resonate amongst those three, and I want just like overall fitness to kind of prevail.